Information about the world of running, inspiration to fuel passion and excellence, and ideas for making connections and finding community. You're listening to AtoZrunning.
Welcome back. I'm Zach.
And I'm Andy.
And we are bringing to you today the Olympic Marathon Trials preview.
Yeah.
It's going to be an exciting conversation. So we've been thinking about this. Andy, you can explain this better than I can. We've been thinking about like how to approach this in a way that, because this is an interesting topic to us, and we know that others are interested, but how to present it in such a way so that you have all the information to make it an exciting experience wherever and however you are tuning in.
Absolutely. Yeah. And also, we want you to have the most fun possible if you're going to be watching and tuning into the Olympic trials and knowing some of the contenders and some of their backstories. I think could aid in your experience.
And you better be watching because Andy's running in it. Come on.
But if
seriously.
you're watching, you won't see me. So that's kind of funny, Zach.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll try to find a way to bump a camera somewhere on the course so that someone
get me
accidentally... No, they won't know it was for you. All right, so we've got that. But before we get to that, we are going to get to that, and that's going to be the bulk of our time. We did want to just mention, that's covering the world of running too, as you might guess. However, there's one thing worth stating, and that was just this past week, the half marathon world record was crushed for the women by Abel Yashana from Ethiopia, breaking it by 31 seconds. And so the previous record was like really something.
Yeah.
And she just dropped another 31 seconds. So she ran 104.31. Let that sink in. I said she. So the context here, as I like to present, is always for the men's U.S. Olympic Marathon Trials, you can qualify with a half time, and that half time is 104 flat. She almost qualifies for the men's Olympic trials.
Absolutely incredible.
Yeah, but don't worry because, Bridget Koske would have qualified for the A standard in the marathon for the Olympic trials for the men. So, it's all just relative.
Was she in this race as well?
Yes, in fact, she was. That was a great point. So the previous world record was 104.51, and the winner there I just mentioned was 104.31, but second place was Bridget Koske, who is the world marathon record holder, and she ran 104.49, 2 seconds under the previous world record. So, we knew that she had it in her. Like the whole point of she could definitely do it after seeing that marathon time was proven in this race. But she didn't get the record because she didn't win. So that's a bummer, but also really exciting at the same time. Try telling her that. All right, so we've got so many things to talk about with the Olympic Trials Marathon. And as you know, the experience on the whole is a pretty interesting one because it's not a huge race. We're talking about in the women's race, like 400-ish people, and in the men's race, like 300-ish people. And so this is not your 20,000-person marathon race, which makes it it's a different kind of race experience. It tends to go out fast. It tends to be an aggressive kind of thing, and then people just start kind of falling off as they can't handle it. It's really exciting.
Yeah, and it will be especially interesting because this course does not lend itself to fast, and it can take a toll on any runner. So just kind of seeing who survives that.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting. You never know how the race will unfold because there's always in any given Olympic trials there's always several, if not I'm thinking like tens of people who have a very legitimate chance of being the contenders. Like you really don't know until the race is unfolding late in the race who's actually in the game, but this one might even be more so that fact because of the hills. Like there's not a flat spot on the course. So you're going up or you're going down the entire time.
But I do want to mention, because I have the information here and I find information fascinating, the course has 1,389 feet of climbing.
So if you're curious, we'll post links to like the elevation chart and stuff so you can just see like what it looks like to run a mountain marathon. And then, if you want any more of the information about what we're talking about, we'll try to link to as many different things as we can so you can follow up on the resources. One thing many of you have mentioned and asked about is, can you track the runners? And the answer is we may or may not know the answer to that when we're posting this. So we'll try to link to some things, and if we can't find it in time, we'll put it out on social media if we do know.
Good idea.
All right, so the big point of the race. Clearly, they're doing this race to determine who will run on the Olympic team for the U.S. in the marathon. And there's been some contentious changes in the last 12 months over how this was going to happen. Yeah, and we mentioned it. You heard us if you were following earlier on when they changed the standards at the Olympic level, which they don't often do. Well, they did in 2016 and they did in 2020, so maybe this is just a norm. The Olympic Committee likes to keep us on our toes. There's been a long-standing conversation in world athletics about making things harder. This whole point of like, if it's harder, then we have the true gold standard of athletes at the Olympic Games and all that kind of stuff. And then it goes back and forth because it's like, make it so that more people can qualify so you get a bigger pool. And then, select
and
from the
more
bigger
countries
pool.
can have a greater representation.
Greater representation. And that's definitely a point of merit. And then the other point of merit, is if you try to make it more challenging, people will rise to the standard. So there's that too. But the reality is they lowered the times significantly. So for the men's marathon now, to run in the Olympic Games, you must have run, and there's a world ranking thing that's just really confusing and convoluted. But in reality, you basically have to run under 2:11:30. And for the women, 2:29:30. And what that means now is for the U.S., in this race, traditionally it's always been the top three finishers are the team for the marathon. And then they always take an alternate. So whoever's fourth becomes the alternate and will race if someone can't in the top three. And that's never been a problem because the Olympic standard has always been like 2:18, 2:19, those kinds of things. But now that the Olympic standard is 2:11:30, there are only 11 men in the U.S. who have run under that time. Current enough to count, but actually there's only 10 who have a current standard. Galen Rupp, and we'll get into some trivia on people, but Galen Rupp, the fastest qualifier for the trials, does not have a current time standard for the 2:11:30. And what I mean by that then is you have to have run this time, I mentioned for the men and women there, within the last 12 months plus a month.
Yeah, so
January
he has to
1st,
run this
2019.
at the trials if he's going.
So, and he's not the only one. There are some others that we'll get into that don't actually have a current time standard. So they need this race to be fast enough.
Right. So that's what will make it interesting because some people want it to be tactical and others will want it to be fast.
And we're talking about a mountain marathon still here. So there's actually a volcano in the middle of this race.
So I do want to say that there are 16 women who have qualified for the world standards.
So 16 women, 11 men, well, 10 technically. And within that, so the top three the top three finishers in the trials are the team if they have run that time. Now, let's say the third place finisher in the trials has only run 2:12 and the race isn't fast enough, then that person actually doesn't go. They just go to the next person on the list. Whoever's in fourth, if they have the time, they go. If they don't have the time, then they go to fifth. And so you see the point then. If the race itself isn't fast enough, then we can see a really interesting thing happen where you get people making the Olympic team who didn't finish top three in the trials. And that has happened.
So it's good to know that when you're watching the race because then you'll understand more how it's unfolding.
Mm-hmm.
And you might see athletes who are good in track events. If it's not on pace and they haven't qualified, they might be dropping not because they can't complete the race, but because they're looking at the track season.
Yeah, and there's going to be potential for some of that. We're not going to get into that at length right now, but especially after the race and kind of a race recap and reflection, touch on who didn't make the team in the marathon, who might actually still be thinking about or planning on trying to make the team in some other events.
Because we know people who have done that.
Indeed. We'll get into that piece of trivia later. So that's the set. That's the context for the event experience.
So let's get started with the men because the men's race goes off first. And the airing by NBC does start at noon. The race for the men starts at 12:08.
So, yeah.
Eastern Standard Time.
You want to tune in, and those are the times that you want to pay attention to. That you said that's Eastern.
Mm-hmm.
So they start the races at different times, but they're still running them at the same time. So when's the women start, Andy?
The women start at 12:20.
So there's the stagger, 12-minute stagger, which means they'll be running at the same time on the same course. But in theory, the men should stay ahead of the women. Newsflash, they don't always. The women will catch many of the men.
Yeah, we have some strong women.
Absolutely. And not even, I mean, you have people who've qualified for the race who aren't necessarily healthy or fit right now. You know, things happen in 3 or 4 years. And so it's possible that there's guys running the race who just haven't been running much. It happens every year. And so the reality of this is it's always exciting to see how long does it take for the women to start catching men.
And I have to say that the airing does conclude at 3 p.m., which means for women, they will have to have crossed the finish line by 12:40.
2 hours and 40 minutes. So that means the airing concludes. They're not going to pull everyone off the race if they don't run 2:40. Although they do have a time, it's like 3 hours or something that they say if you haven't run that time that they may close the finish line. But I've never actually heard of them doing that, so okay. I don't know that they will. All right, so for the men's race, this is how we're going to do this. We're gonna have a little bit of fun here. Andy's
kind of nervous.
I don't know how these things make Andy nervous because it matters so little to any of you. And here's why. We're going to do a little trivia game. So I'm going to give Andy a trivia tidbit about one of these athletes. And for all in good spirit, I'm going to try to stick to the top 20 men on the list, just so that she's not having to think about 300 guys while she's answering these questions. But I'm going to throw in a couple of honorable mentions afterward too. So, and I'm going to give her a trivia tidbit. She's going to try to guess who the athlete is. Those of you listening, see if you can't get it before Andy does, or if Andy can't get it as well, because it's interesting and it's fun to know a little bit about these athletes and what's going on in their lives and their careers and all that kind of thing. So, Andy, you don't need to sweat it. Because if you get them all wrong, it's okay. I don't think I'm going to get any of them right anyway for yours. All right, so I'm not doing these in any particular order. I'm just looking randomly at my list of trivia topics, and I'm going to just start throwing them at you. So this athlete, between the 2016 trials and now, has been dropped by his sponsor, had Achilles surgery, went through a divorce, took up teaching, started a new master's degree in mechanical engineering, by the way, and oh, yeah, he also just happened to run a 3-minute PR in the marathon, all in this last 4 years.
So I have to admit something to you, Zach.
You did. You looked it up. You did some research.
I just kind of looked at an overview of people.
No, you are supposed to not look. You cheated.
I just know that. So this is my guess because I didn't see the whole thing, but I saw something about a master's program.
Don't even let Andy try to throw you off here. She was so nervous about this that she literally cheated to try to win our trivia game on air.
No, it's not cheating. It's preparing. It's studying for your test.
No, it actually is cheating because we actually said, we agreed.
No, you said that. We didn't agree.
We agreed we're not going to research the other person's athletes so that we can have a legitimate thing here. All right, so you know who it is. Who was it?
Jacob Riley.
Jacob Riley. He used to run for Brooks Hanson's. He does not anymore, but he did run 2:10:36 in the Chicago Marathon this past fall, which puts him on that list. He's number 5 on the list of men, and in legitimate chance because he's got the time.
Yeah.
So he doesn't have to run the time in Atlanta. So if it's not fast, it actually plays into his favor.
Absolutely.
All right. Let me throw another one at you. I got to remember which ones I do here. I should probably mark this in some way, right? I'm on my document thinking, how can I remember? All right. So next one up for you, Andy. See what you get. This one, he's known as the Great Marathon Metronome. Executing race plans and pacing strategies like a machine. He's beloved by many for his ongoing role in higher education, and he's that much more multifaceted for his recent successful enterprise, pitching a successful product on Shark Tank.
Oh, I do know the Shark Tank one. Who is this? No, I saw this
Just
online.
look on your list. Just you can't. I mean, you can't Google him, but
no, I know. I will get this.
She's gonna sit here for like 3 minutes and just let all you sit here in silence, listening to her scroll on her iPad to try to find out if she can remember some obscure fact like Shark Tank. Now, some of you may know. It's Jared Ward. Yes.
Yeah.
So Jared Ward's a real threat in the marathon for the U.S. He's also one of our top finishers in international in the Olympics. When Galen Rupp medaled, Jared Ward was
6th.
6th?
Yeah.
I was going to say 5th. I couldn't remember exactly. So he was 6th. So he's there. He's run 2:09:25. He's 4th on the qualifying list within this current window. But everybody's looking at Jared Ward thinking he's got a chance.
Houston, too, which was really recent.
Yeah.
101 and change.
The half marathon, yeah, he ran 61:36, which is like top 15 ever for American male half marathons. Yeah. So solid. All right. I've got another one for you. This marathoner plays in an indie rock band in his spare time.
That's cool.
Known for their mix of 60s, 70s, and 90s style musics, some kind of rockish stuff, depending on the song, which also, by the way, explains his look and his physical appearance, in my opinion. You're just going to have to throw it out there. You have no clue. You have no clue.
Oh, goodness.
And I know plenty of these names you don't even recognize, so it's not going to be a problem.
Matt Lano?
No, but this one has run 2:10:37 in the Chicago Marathon in 2019 and is number 6 on the list.
Is Gerald Mock?
Yes, Gerald Mock.
What?
So,
he has so many hobbies. Because he does like ceramics and pottery.
How do you know that?
Because I know things.
Well, it's a good thing I didn't say that because you're doing your background research you're not supposed to be doing.
I still
Ceramics
didn't
and
get
pottery.
it. And
Come
fly
on.
fishing.
Wow.
Camping.
You clearly did more research than I did on the candidate
No,
that
that's
I was
cool.
supposed to present.
That's amazing, though, that he's also into music.
Yeah, he's got a legit
Rocker.
shot. He's got one of those times. He's also run 62 minutes and a half earlier in 2019. So he's one to watch, one to look out for.
And he's kind of new, isn't he, to like the professional running scene?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he doesn't have a lot of times on the list for these long distance events, which is always telling. Like he's kind of one of those that you don't know exactly what to expect, and the consequence of means he could show up.
Right.
He could show up big. He's by no means is at the end of his career. So here's the next one. This athlete in his marathon debut found out the day before the race that the Pacers were going to go much faster than he was planning on running. So he changed his race plan fewer than 24 hours before his first marathon ever and ended up running the fastest debut by an American ever. And, oh, by the way, he wasn't training for a marathon at the time.
Is this Abdi?
He came off of running the World Championships 10K and weeks later jumped in this marathon. Now, it was the plan. It wasn't like they weren't planning this, but he wasn't in like a classic marathon buildup.
Am I right?
No, it is not Abdi.
No? Scott Fable?
No, don't just start guessing down the list. Come on. This is Leonard Career. He clocks in at the number 2. He's the second fastest qualifier, and in some people's opinion, he's kind of the big question mark for like, can he just throw down something crazy? Because in Amsterdam in 2019, October of 2019, he ran 2:07:56.
Ooh, that's
Whoa,
fast.
in his debut marathon. He's
fast.
also run 60 minutes and 12 seconds for a half marathon.
Wow.
So we're talking about this guy can do work.
Yeah,
and
he can
if you're
fly.
familiar with Leonard Career, he's got a huge resume on the track as well, 5K, 10K, especially 10K. And he's one who's part of the Army WCAP program with bringing some professional athletes into competition experience in some really unique ways. It's a great program that the Army's got going. So that's Leonard Career, number 2 on the list. And let me jump to a different one here now. I'm going to just scroll around until Andy doesn't know where I'm landing. And, all right, here you go. In 2019, this athlete didn't finish a race, was recovering from heel surgery, added a 4th kid to his family, ...
Galen Rupp.
Lost his lifelong coach to a U.S.
Galen
ADA rules violation, and yet he's still considered by most to be the race favorite. Yes, Galen Rupp.
That surgery, man. Took him
Tough
out the whole year.
Story. Yeah,
I mean,
and
not he tried to race, but
tried to race. He tried to run
come
Chicago and injured his calf in his training cycle and thought he could run through it and couldn't, so he ended up dropping out of Chicago. And in the days before the race, found out that Salazar was out. Alberto was his coach, and so lost his coach. And of course, all the criticism is like Galen's a cheat. Galen this, Galen that, and so that doesn't help, right?
no.
And
The marathon's so mental. Like, it's so...
absolutely.
Yeah.
And then having to rehab an injury amidst all of that firestorm, like this guy's just been through it. It's been
Did you
rough.
say they had another baby, too?
They did earlier
fourth?
in 2019.
So
Their fourth.
that's also rough.
Yeah, their oldest are twins, and then they've
Okay.
got I can't remember the ages, but yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's really interesting.
Yep.
Yeah, so Galen Rupp, Zach probably already said it, but was bronze medalist in Rio. So
yeah, Galen's got the resume. I mean, he's the most successful American distance runner at the longer distance events
he's won
in modern
like,
history.
Yeah, if he doesn't
Yeah.
make it in the marathon, you'll see him on the track most likely if he's healthy.
He'll certainly try because he has to. He's Galen Rupp. He's not going to just decide, oh, I guess I'll just not try in anything else. So you don't know. All right, I got a couple more for you. I wanted to jump up there to Galen there, but I thought I would throw you off, and I didn't. All right, so here's one for you. While a fast runner in many respects, surely this athlete is possibly best known in the running community for burritos, specifically for loving burritos, and he even has pins, which you can buy on his website.
What?
You
are stumping me. I
you.
can't even guess. I don't know. I have no idea.
Because who knows what it was. This is Scott Fauble. So Scotty Fauble is part of the NAZ Elite crew, and he dropped the big one at the Boston Marathon in 2019, running 2:09:09 to put him number 3 on the list in this qualifying window, and certainly a very real contender. And he's just got this weird thing with burritos, and if you hear the backstory, it actually makes a ton of sense. It was a college thing where they just went to this burrito place every Friday as a team, and they just fell in love with burritos, and it became an existential
who doesn't
thing.
like fall in love with burritos when they eat them? Like
I do not eat burritos.
Oh, really?
Well, unless you make them. Okay, yes. When you make them, I eat them. But I don't order burritos at a restaurant. They cause problems in my digestion.
Well, let's move
All right.
on.
All right. So I got one more for you, Andy. Well, kind of 2 more because I have some honorable mentions. Now, this athlete holds multiple American records as well as medals at the world stage, and is likely one that everyone will easily recognize either by face or name or both. Oh, and before you make a guess, he's the only athlete in the field to hold national records in 2 different nationalities, current national records.
Abdi.
He has more national records than any 2 others in the field combined, and he has more world championship medals than the rest of the field combined. He's competed in 5 Olympic Games, and apparently Wikipedia can't always be trusted because they use the tense before retirement to describe his last track accomplishment, which clearly he's not retired, folks.
Am I right?
The one and only Bernard Lagat.
What?
Bernard Lagat. So he's coming in at 2:12:10. He's 20th on the list. He's 20th on the qualification list. He doesn't have the time. He needs 2:11:30. So, if he's serious about it, he might go for it. You never know the state of things with him because, Bernard Lagat is just like, he shows up.
He's legendary.
He just shows up all
at
the time.
the last Olympics, I was dying. It was amazing.
Incredible. 5-time Olympian. Not even, that's seriously. So he's running as a Masters runner now. He's breaking Masters, world, and American records as well. And his backstory is just the craziest ever because he started running for Kenya, representing Kenya. He ran the second fastest 1,500 time ever, almost breaking the world record, 0.3 of a second. And in that race, he was racing the epic, fabled Hikam El Garouche and barely lost to him by like 1/10 of a second. And if you know anything about Bernard Lagat, that guy can kick like a demon.
Yeah.
He's crazy. So it's just been exciting to follow his career for years and years and years and years and years. He's done things no one's done or 2 or 3 people in history have done, like all that kind of stuff. And here he is in the marathon, showing up one more time. So even if he isn't going to be in that race in the final stages, I'd love to watch for him for sure. So I certainly could go on and give you some more things about these guys, but I just did want to give a couple more mentions because here we're looking at so many people who could do this, and we don't want to take that perspective of like trying to predict who's going to do it, who's going to make it happen.
Because they're all so good.
Well, and really, it's a marathon.
Yeah.
Everything can fall apart. Everything can come together at any given moment. And some of these people are thinking in their heads like, I've got this, and some of them are thinking, I really hope no one else has this because, you just never know what's really going on in these athletes' minds. And we don't want to try to cast any shade. However, a couple other just mentions of some things. Certainly there's other notables within. I didn't even mention all the top 10 there, but like number 8 on the list is Andrew Bumbelow. He was 5th at that Boston Marathon where it was like super nasty. That was awful. He's run 2:10:56 in the qualifying window, so he's there. He's real. Matthew McDonald, another one in the qualifying window.
Yeah.
He's one of those guys, by the way, who he can do 26.2. He's got it. Like he can do that. So
and
we'll see
he's
how
part
that
of
comes
Atlanta
down.
Track Club, so he's kind of on his home turf.
Home turf. That means something. There's a couple Atlanta Track Club guys here in the top list of or so. And Matt Lano's number 10 on the list with 2:11:14, tied with Scott Smith, who's also run 2:11:14. Both of them are in real chances here. And then Abdi. Abdi's 12th on the list. He doesn't have the time. He ran 2:11:34 at the New York Marathon, which is not a fast course. So if Abdi can run 2:11 at New York Marathon this past November, clearly he's fit. You know, Abdi's another one. We didn't say this earlier, but Abdi's been around forever.
He's a 4-time Olympian.
Yep, he has done it so many times, and here he is yet again with another potential shot. So, you know, and by the way, another one of those where Wikipedia just gets it all wrong because they, again, say he was a 4-time Olympian. What is he not alive anymore? Is he clearly he's alive, and clearly he's still running fast. So I don't know what that was all about. But anyway, Brendan Gregg's back there just shy of the time as well with 2:11:38, and
he's from Brooks Hanson's Distance Project. So
yes,
Michigan, we
Yep.
like the Michigan folks here.
There's always worth some shout outs and such. So a lot of things going on there. And then my couple other honorable mentions who aren't in anywhere near that list and the front of the list, back at number 35 is Heron Legat. And I wanted to mention because while he's not near the top 10, he's only run 2:13 this past Berlin Marathon. His first marathon, I should mention, his only marathon, but he's also run 61 flat in the half marathon.
Speedy.
He was ranked in the top 20 in the world in the steeplechase for 6 years in a row. So this guy's tough. He's tough.
Yeah.
And honestly, I've seen some of his races, and I just keep thinking, when's it going to happen? Like, maybe it's bound to happen. But he's one that you just watch out for him. Watch out for him. He'll be wearing the Army uniform as well. He's part of that WCAP program as well. And I wanted to mention Nate Martin because he's kind of a local relationship in some sorts. He was a rival in college for me. We ran against each other, and this was one of those interesting cases where I felt like I could beat him in cross country confidently most of the time, and on the track, I didn't even bother trying to keep up with him because it wasn't a chance. And I don't know how that happened. I could take him in cross, couldn't touch him in track, and I definitely can't touch him in the marathon. He's run 2:14:33, but get this, he's run 2:14:33 twice on the same course 2 years in a row.
Wow.
The exact same time.
That's not very likely.
That's not very likely. So definitely, exciting to see him in there. And he's ranked 56th, but I'd love to see him finish higher than that. I have no doubt he can. So a tough course, that might work into his favor.
Yeah.
And, of course, Alan Peterson was a Grand Valley guy, so we got to mention, some of these local kinds of peoples. Alan Peterson has just been chopping chunks off his marathon time every year for the last 4 years. I remember racing him in the Detroit Marathon in 2016, and he won the race, and I was third, right behind second place, second and third together. He beat us by like 5 minutes, and he ran at the time. I think it was his PR. It was like 2:19 and change or 2:20, very low. And from that point on, just every year, he chunked another minute and change off, and then ran 2:14:56 in the Chicago Marathon this past fall.
Good for him.
So, yeah, really exciting. I've loved following his career just from afar, but, he's there. One more. We have to mention Dathan Ritzenhein. We have to mention Dathan for two reasons. So, first of all, his time on the list doesn't mean a thing. He's run in this qualifying window 2:16. And that puts him like 82nd on the list. But that really doesn't mean anything because when Dathan is healthy and when Dathan's ready to race, which, he's showing up at this line to give it his all, Dathan's a real threat in any distance against any American. So there's always a thought there of like, if it comes together, you should not discount him.
So people that are new to this podcast, tell people who Dathan is.
So Dathan Ritzenhein, he's the West Michigan guy. He's the guy. He went to high school with Andy.
Well, I went behind him, but
yeah. He was like 4 years ahead of her. But so Dathan's multiple-time Olympian. He broke the American record in the 5K at one point. He's run 60 flat in the half marathon, which I think is number 3 on the American list still. It's number 3 or 4. And of course, he's just done it all. He's done cross country, he's done track, he's done road racing. He's run 2:07 and change for his PR marathon, which it was a while ago, true. And he'd be the first one to tell you that things don't always work out for him when he toes the line. It's hard to have a good race these days, but if he has a good race,
he's on fire.
It's real.
Yeah. And he's the one that we were talking about, alluded to earlier, who didn't make it in the marathon and came back and made it in the track and the 10K.
Yeah, not many people pull that off. Not only did he pull it off, but he was hurt again that spring. So he came back from an injury in a very small period of time, ran 27:40 something in the 10K, at the U.S. trials to make the Olympic team. This guy is
He's got range, too.
He does.
Serious range.
So we're rooting for you, Dathan.
Yes.
You already knew that, but certainly excited to, see if it can come together for you one more time.
So there's one more person that we want to talk about for the men's side, and that's Parker Stinson.
Unfortunately, because he has withdrawn from the race for injury, which is a huge bummer. So you heard us talking with Parker if you were listening to the show several episodes back. And if you haven't, you should listen to the episode. Unfortunately, it's no longer quite as relevant to this build-up because he's had to withdraw. But
relevant to a lot of our experiences where you work really hard towards something and you give it all you have and then aren't able to show up for the race day.
Yeah, and the dream is big and it's real, and so it's worthwhile to check out the article. We'll post it in the show just to kind of hear his take on what happened and just kind of his mindset. It's a tough place to be for any of these runners. He's not the only one. You heard us mention a couple other scratches from the races. So it's a bummer when that happens, and it does happen. And so, Parker, we wish you the best with recovering and rebounding back into a great training place again, hopefully soon.
Yeah, definitely. So best to you, Parker, as you recover.
All right, Andy. The men's race is going to be awesome. I'm excited, but really I'm not going to pay any attention to it during the event because I'm going to be watching the women for personal bias reasons. And her name is Andy.
That's awkward.
Yeah,
what women are you watching?
You.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
talking about you, clearly. All right, so
there's a lot of great women on this list.
I am not nearly as nervous as you were about this, but I have no doubt I'm going to get all of these wrong. What are your trivias? What do you got for me?
Okay, so this athlete I found very interesting. I didn't know this before. She ran her debut marathon when she was 4 weeks pregnant, and she ran 2:28:01.
Emma Bates.
Nope.
Oh. That was just a random guess.
Wait,
so go
random.
back and say it.
And
she was 4 weeks pregnant?
In 2016, this runner debuted her marathon in 2:28:01, and she was 4 weeks pregnant. I'll give you a hint. She previously...
Kellen Taylor.
Nope.
Oh.
She previously was the silver medalist in the 10K at the 2012 London Olympic Games.
Oh, Sally Kipyego.
Yep.
Yeah,
You're
there we
right.
go.
And
Got
she
it.
just became eligible to compete for the U.S.
Yep.
as of August 21st, 2019.
Just this year. So, yeah, that's one. We'll be interested to see, if things come together for this. She ran what? Berlin Marathon?
Yeah, Berlin. Yep, 2:25:10.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right.
Flying. This runner, you know her for her speed on the roads and the track.
Molly Huddle.
Hey, I was going to say something
me-
really interesting next because she very well could be the reason we have a female running emoji.
Oh,
Isn't that cool?
Why?
Yeah, so she had a post about needing one when she was texting a friend, and there wasn't one. There was only a male
Really?
running emoji, and it looks like her. So when it finally happened, it was retweeted like thousands
Wow.
of times. It was a big, big deal.
This was clearly prior to there's 17 variations of every emoji now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, but she was part of, we think,
Who knows? But
right. But it seemed kind of coincidental that the first female running emoji looked like her, and she had been the one to discuss it
that's
online.
something.
So
Yeah, that's something.
I think that's kind of cool. Way to go, Molly Huddle.
Nice.
This athlete is a mom of 2 boys, and she married another famous distance runner who is now her coach.
Yeah, all right, come on.
Is that too easy?
It depends.
Oh, okay.
There's a
You
couple
don't
of
know.
moms,
Okay.
but married to another famous distance runner who is her coach.
Yes.
Des Linden.
Nope.
Oh, I thought you were going to try to pull a curveball on me with Des.
Does she have 2 boys?
No, it's Stephanie Bruce. Come on.
This is Stephanie Bruce. She began running when she was 4 years old.
Does Desi have any kids?
I don't think she
I don't
does.
think so
No,
either.
no.
I was trying to be funny there.
No,
yeah.
she has a nice dog, I think.
Stephanie Bruce.
Yeah, Stephanie Bruce, and she obviously she trains with her husband, Naz Elite team in Arizona. She's known for her grit, so you can never really count her out for anything because she is so tough.
Yeah, absolutely. And she's on what is she on the list? Number 12 on the list.
Number 12 on the list, and she has a qualifying time of 2:27:47.
Wow. All right. So she's well
speedy.
under.
Yep.
But she's 12 on the list, but there's a couple of scratches in front of her, right? So she's actually 10 on the order. So
Sure.
All right. What's next?
This marathoner literally runs with the wolves. In her solar-powered tiny house, this contender lives on 10 acres of wilderness with no self-service or Wi-Fi.
Wait, doesn't she know that wolves are dangerous? That they might eat people?
Well, there are bear, wolves. She's seen all kinds of stuff out there.
I'm going
And
with
her-
Kellen Taylor.
No.
Oh.
She also won the 2018 USATF running circuit, and her fiance is her coach.
I got nothing.
It's Emma Bates.
Emma Bates?
Yep.
Interesting.
Yeah, isn't it?
So in Idaho, she just runs in the middle of nowhere?
Yep.
With wolves?
Well, I don't know if she runs. Yeah, I bet she runs out there too. I bet it's beautiful.
Yeah, and that guy was going to write a book about running with the wolves like he did about running with the buffaloes, except they ate him before he could finish it.
Oh,
so,
that's sad.
I'm kidding. That's not a true thing. All right, who's next?
This experienced marathoner is This experienced marathoner is an unmistakable threat to the top three. This is fun trivia. In late 2016, she trained and passed the firefighter test to qualify as a firefighter for the United States. And she did that instead of running a fall marathon.
So she's a firefighter and a professional runner?
Yes, and she won the 25K in Grand Rapids at the riverbank in 2014, which was the U.S. Championships 25K.
This might be the only firefighter marathoner ever in the history of time.
Which makes it a super interesting fun fact, right?
Possibly. I have no idea who you're talking about, though.
Okay, so I'll keep going. She won the 2018 Grandma's Marathon in 2:24:28, setting a course record in the process. Yes.
All right.
And that made her the 7th fastest marathoner in U.S. women's history.
That's something.
Yeah.
Number 5 on the list in the rank. She's
at
2:24:28. It's no joke.
This runner runs way beyond 100 miles a week in only 6-day training. She and her retired pro runner husband, now coach, adopted 4 girls in 2018.
All right. Sarah Hall.
Yes.
Adopted 4 sisters from Ethiopia.
Her qualifying mark is 2:22:16.
Yeah, and she probably did that like after running a marathon the morning before as well.
She's been killing
I'm guessing
it.
she
She's
ran a
been
marathon
so
in her
many.
sleep the night before and got up and was like, I'm feeling fresh. Let's try another.
Yeah.
Sarah Hall races more than everyone else in the field combined.
It would seem like that.
Possibly.
She's a powerhouse. So she's someone who's super tough. That's why, like, she's ranked 3rd on the list. I see her as, like, a pretty strong bet for top 3. I don't know what position she'll be. And the reason why I say that, I know the whole field is very strong, is because she has shown up so many times so consistently, despite a lot of obstacles.
She's going to be real. Watch for Sarah Hall.
Oh, wait, she's 2nd on the list because
Amy
Craig
there's a scratch in number 2.
Scratched, yes.
Yeah, the number 2 spot, Amy Craig, had to scratch out.
She loves Winnie the Pooh quotes, including, "Always remember you are braver than you believe and stronger than you realize." She's a 2-time Foot Locker cross-country champion, and those were the years of 2005 and 2008. And she has a superstar status among, like, high school. She did when she was in high school, and she won 2008 Girls High School Athlete of the Year by a unanimous vote.
Shailene Flanagan's not actually competing, Andy.
She probably did too. Actually, you know what? She might have. I don't know.
I'm kidding.
I actually don't know that about her.
She's a little bit older than that, but.
Do you know who it is?
No.
Okay, another hint. She recently had a coaching switch and is now being coached by
Emily
one of
Sisson.
my
Oh.
by my role model athletes, Paula Radcliffe.
Oh, okay. All right. Jordan Hesse.
Yes.
I thought you were going to give some kind of Oregon reference with her, so I was just waiting for like NCAA stuff.
Quacking?
Okay.
Okay.
No.
This racer, along with her husband and 2 other runners, own a small batch coffee company. She's a fan favorite of many, and she's a contender based out of Michigan and lives in one of our favorite places in the whole entire world.
Des Linden.
Yes, Traverse City, Michigan.
Lives in the TC Cherry Republic.
I know. I love it there.
So good.
Yeah. But actually, as a contender, she's one of my favorite athletes to watch. She's just phenomenal. And for those of you who don't know, she was crowned the Boston Queen with her first place finish in 2019, and it was horrible conditions. So she's one of those people that's like, okay, she doesn't have the fastest time. She's 10th on this list, or 9th with the scratch. But she shows up at hard races. Like, she's really good at overcoming difficult times.
Yeah, Des is always one that, she just does. She just does it. And so whatever the it needs to be, come on. Whatever the it needs to be, she just does. So we're going to watch that closely, certainly. Any more? Or did you exhaust your supply of random tidbits?
I had too much fun with this, you guys. I am like,
clearly.
Yeah, this was so much fun for me to look up this information. This superstar runner
Emily
is
Sisson. She's the only one left in the top 10. No.
This superstar runner is a crocheting wizard.
Oh, Alafine Tulimak.
Yes, you got it. Yep. She has her own Etsy shop with her crocheted items. She did win the 25K U.S. Championships in Grand Rapids in 2016.
Yep.
And she's a 9-time U.S. national champion.
She is 11 or 9 on the list, and 26:50 is her qualifying time within the window. So she's right there. She's a real threat.
At 28, she is younger than any other female U.S. Olympic marathoner since 1996, if she makes it, though fellow contender Jordan Hissey is a month younger. She's fairly new-ish to the marathon and trains with Molly Huddle and New Balance, and her half marathon time is in the U.S. all-time top 10 of 1:07:30. This is the fastest debut for an American.
Yes. So Emily Sisson
he says it with so much confidence.
Well,
He's like, I know it
she's
now.
the only one left on the list. So Emily Sisson is one to watch for many reasons, but she has a lot of the strengths that Molly Huddle has, but she may have a higher ceiling in the marathon just based off of what we've seen so far. You don't know. She's pretty new to these things. Mm-hmm. But we know that Molly Huddle can do just about anything in terms of distance running at an elite global level. But she hasn't put together a marathon that necessarily balances out her other events. And Emily Sisson has. So it'll be interesting to see.
She'll be one to look for.
One to watch. All right. Well,
I have some honorable mentions.
I was going to say, give us your honorable mentions. What else do we need to know?
We need to know about these other contenders because they're all with the world qualifying standard. Absolutely. And have a legitimate shot at making the Olympic team. Nell Roja, she was actually training for an Ironman and then switched to the marathon. So she ran 2:28:06 at Grandma's Marathon, and this was only her second marathon ever. So she's really new to the scene and could be kind of one of those, like, surprise factors.
At number 13 on the list.
Yes, she's number 13 on the list, and she's run 1:10:45 in the half marathon as well. Lindsay Flanagan, she placed 9th in the 2000 Boston Marathon last year, and she's coached by Steve Magnus. We also have Allie Kiefer. She's a phenomenal marathoner. She doesn't have the world standard yet.
Not currently.
She's run that time. Yeah. But last year, I don't think she posted many races. I think she had some injuries or something going on. I tried to look up some races and couldn't find some stuff from this year. So anyway, she's fast enough. It's just whether or not she can come together on this day and show up big.
So she needs a fast race. We mentioned there are some who want a fast race in Atlanta. She's one. She wants it to be fast. Laura Thweatt. She
finished 6th at the 2017 London Marathon in 2:25:38. And for those of you, when we're saying these times, 2:25:38 is 5:34 per mile. So, like, to give you an idea, like, that's what I run a little bit faster than that for my 5K for a pace.
Yeah, no sweat.
Yeah, so it's a big deal.
She's got the time as well.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Within the window.
And Samantha Palmer, she said that she never made an NCAA final.
Wow.
Yeah, and she had this dream of becoming a professional runner despite that. And after college, 4 out of 4 professional training groups that she reached out to said that she wasn't fast enough. And since then, she's PR'd in every race distance. She's qualified for a few Olympic trials, and she did make a U.S. cross-country team. So she's had to overcome a lot of no's. She'd won the U.S. jersey, and she still didn't have a sponsor or a team.
Yeah, and that's kind of the way this sport happens. Is if you're not one that does it all, then you get a lot of no's. Mm-hmm. And yet she's run 2:29 in the marathon.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah, and Roberta Groner. We have to talk about Roberta Groner because you cannot count out a woman who's had 3 kids, is a full-time nurse, and runs at the world level of competition. She ran the world marathon in Doha. She was 6th place there with terrible, terrible conditions. So she's someone when the times are tough and when things are hard, this woman knows how to get through it.
All right. And that rounds out 16 athletes who are under the 2:29:30 standard for women. All right, so that kind of breaks it down for you. And what we're really trying to do here is talk about why this race is interesting. And if you don't necessarily want to tune into all the details, if you don't want to follow, the wire by wire, you at least have now the context to understand what it is that people are thinking coming into this race, especially in kind of the top tier of it, and what it is that might influence how this race goes down. If it's fast, there's some people who want it fast. If it's slow, there's some people sweating in that pack, hoping it speeds up. And all of this comes down to Andy's running, and we are all excited to see how she does. And really just appreciating all of your support. We've said this before, but part of what's made this a great experience for Andy is the amount of support that's come through the AtoZrunning community as well. So thank you all.
Very grateful for that. Yeah, I feel really blessed. So #blessed. Everyone hates that word. Everyone hates the word blessed. But I do feel extremely grateful, and having you all cheering me on and commenting, it really makes a difference to me, and I feel humbled by it.
So we mentioned we're going to try to put as many of these relevant links and things in the notes for the episode. That is AtoZrunning.com/episode 21.
We do have a couple people from Grand Rapids that are running as well, Jordan Chester and Joanna Stevens. So keep an eye out for them too if you are looking to follow local runners from Grand Rapids.
Definitely. And don't forget about this Andy Ripley, who's also running.
Oh, gosh.
I have to do this. I'm her husband. If I don't, she might think that I don't care. No. So, of course, there's plenty more that anyone could share about the race, but we wanted to give you enough to have some background, some context, and understand some of the factors happening and going around this event.
Yeah, and we'll be there, obviously, so we're going to keep you updated at AtoZrunning on Instagram mainly, but we'll also be updating on Facebook and Twitter as well.
And stay tuned next week for a race recap and report to kind of give you the lowdown of what happened.